In 2010, I was admitted to the hospital for anxiety and depression. When I was there, I was told it was best to keep our status secret because otherwise we would be looked down upon by everyone. Of course, we had the option of telling people, but it was highly unadvised, since they wanted us to keep some sense of normalcy outside of the hospital. I didn't like the idea of hiding most of my life and who I was just because of fear. I already had enough of that. I do not understand why the people just accepted the way society did this. So this is a way for me to show you exactly what a few types of mental illnesses are and what they do. Chronic anxiety is when a body's alarm system is always going. Our bodies are made with an innate knowledge to protect themselves. Normally, the brain is able to detect a dangerous situation and warn us through anxiety. When someone has an anxiety disorder, the signals that sends anxiety is constantly being pressed, even when there is no danger around. Sometimes the person afflicted has some things that set them off more than others, but often has no reason. You can't just calm down. It is literally a miswiring in the mind. However, that does not mean that you can't do normal things or be in essence normal. It doesn't make us weak or less of a person. It just means they have an illness. You wouldn't tell a person with cancer to just get better. Neither should you tell someone the same thing with anxiety. Depression for me is one of the hardest things in the world to explain or get across. When you read about it, you learn the mechanics. But when you have it, it becomes much more complicated. Technically, depression is when your body doesn't make enough serotonin, which are happy chemicals, and leaves you miserable. Often it is compared to feeling sad, but that is not it at all. Sadness happens to everyone. Depression leaves you hopeless. It feels like you are drowning and you can't breathe. You can be in a room full of people and still feel utterly alone. In some cases, you are so low that you can't even put the effort in to take your pills and try to get better. Your body is drained. Obviously, depression is different for everyone, but this is what I and a few of my friends have experienced. And it is the most horrible thing I can fathom. Over 70% of people inflicted with depression have gone through some kind of discrimination. Being told to snap out of it or just be happy are a few of the most common things that are said. The thing is, we want to be happy, we try, but there's literally a physical reason that people are this way. Wanting doesn't always mean it's going to work. Eating disorders are always different. They can be fueled by many different things, and it isn't always started by someone believing they're fat, like some people believe. Often it can be caused by the need for control. Food is one thing you can moderate, and in many people's life situations that is uncommon, i.e. someone with an estranged family or chronic pain. On the other side of things, some women or men see things about themselves as something they despise, weight being one of those common things. Sometimes they will literally look in the mirror and see a whole different person than what we see them as. You may be able to see their bones, but to them they are 300 pounds. There's a distortion in the mind that causes the patient to think that way, and no matter what they do, it is never enough. They can never be thin enough, even when their organs are shutting down and they're days away from death. There are two main types of actions that are most commonly classified as eating disorders. There is anorexia, which is barely eating and exercising in excess, and bulimia, which is binging and purging. Sometimes you can be diagnosed with EDNOS, which is an abbreviation meaning eating disorder not otherwise specified, which means that you might have a mix of both anorexia and bulimia, or your eating disorder doesn't fit into those guidelines. It doesn't make it any less real or important, though. All variations of eating disorders are destructive and horrible. It is rarely something the sufferer wants, but it becomes a horrible loop. It affects both the mind and body and is not to be underestimated. In conclusion, each of these illnesses are very different, but in some ways very similar. They cause malfunctions in the brain, and they are all excruciatingly hard to live with. Just because you may not always be able to see someone's illnesses in an x-ray, or it can't be healed within a few weeks, doesn't make it less important, less painful, and definitely doesn't make someone any less of a person. Therefore, they should not be treated as such.